What's up, everybody? We've officially vented all our frustrations and we brought Matt in to close the book on Notre Dame. Now it's time to turn our sights on SMU on this episode from the Pink Seats podcast. We got Matt's stats, and then on SMU, we've got the story of their season so far. What's their offense and defense look like? Who are the players to watch? Keys to the game. We also got predictions and whatever else we stumble upon along the way. Let's get that intro going.
One of the top playmakers for them, arguably like the top playmaker for them offensively, is Brashard Smith. And I did not realize how damn good of a season he was having.
Hello and welcome to another episode of From the Pink Seats podcast, brought to you by the State of Louisville Podcast Network. I'm producer Keith. With me tonight is Vince Lococo and Matt McGavic. And boys, we've moved on. It's time to look at SMU. First off, Matt, any frustrations before we move on? Or are you just gonna stick on the stumble?
I've heard that made me laugh. I've heard my name butchered many a times in my 31 years of existence. Matt McGavic is a first. That's congrats.
Combination of our
congrats to you. That's a good one. Yeah, no, I liked it. That's a new one for me.
Hold on. Yeah, screw you.
So Keith has control.
Yep. So,
am I French now?
Yes. That being said, boys, Matt, it's been a hot minute since we've seen you, at least a week to be exact. Vince, saw you over the weekend, but get anything fun over the last couple of days?
It's Italian American Heritage Month, so I mean, shouldn't you all be, celebrating me a little bit more than this mundane boringness that you're giving me?
Oh, bibbidi papa, done.
There we go. I need something.
we're just getting all the European stereotypes out of the way right now.
My month, October baseball. So I have all my Yankees gear on. I mean, somebody's got to do it around here.
Matt, how about you? We haven't seen you since last week. How was the adventure up north, back down, and anything in between?
I mean, the adventure up there was certainly an adventure because the weather was still kind of blech because of all the rain and whatnot. Not to mention the fact that it actually rained day of. And South Bend, is nice around Notre Dame, but I wasn't expecting it to look like your typical Midwestern town like anywhere else. But other than that, just going to Notre Dame and experiencing one of the top college football destinations that was definitely high on my as a college football fan.
Grotto?
No, I didn't. I didn't even get a true standalone picture of Touchdown Jesus. I just saw it from the stadium. But I mean, still from the press box, you could obviously see the field. You could see the Golden Dome. You can see Touchdown Jesus. I mean, it was pretty cool. I won't lie.
So that was your maiden voyage to South Bend. That was your first time?
Oh yeah, it's first time.
Oh, all right.
Well, campus makes me angry that I didn't take academics a little bit more serious in my life. Just a little bit.
I mean, it honestly reminded me of my college, just bigger, a lot bigger.
Reminds me nothing of the University of Louisville when I walk around the campus. Sad to say there are no golden domes on our campus.
You know what there are, those? Dive bars with cheap drinks, and that's where I spent all the last Saturday up at the linebacker during my pregame. It was delightful.
We still need to open up the fullback. I feel like that would really sell more than the linebacker.
The fullback or the zero tech, something like that.
The nose tackle.
All right. Well, you know what else we need to open up? This sponsorship opportunity for our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. It's football season. You want to get yourself a little bit of side hustle action on the game, but don't necessarily want to dive full in. Our friends over at Underdog Fantasy got you covered because they are so simple and so easy to use. All you got to do is find players you like, find the stats that you believe in, and simply choose the higher or lower in the lines they set for stats like touchdowns or passing or rushing yards. And With making picks being that easy, signing up even easier. All you have to do is head on over to the Underdog Fantasy app or underdogfantasy.com and sign up using the promo code PINKSEATS. And if you use that promo code, Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your initial deposit. So one more time for you, that's Underdog Fantasy, promo code PINKSEATS to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Thanks, Underdog Fantasy. And now with that out of the way, let's roll in to one of the segments that gets me the most juiced to get ready for the weekend. I'm craving it. I'm fiending it. Give me some of those Matt stats.
All right, I know I typically like dive into my stats with like heavy on the other team, but I did a little bit of research on Louisville's like PFF stats up to this point, just out of pure shits and giggles, because why not?
Shiggles.
Shiggles, exactly. I found a pretty decent one on Tyler Shuck. I mean, as we know, he's had a really good start to the season in terms of commanding the offense. Hasn't really put Louisville like in a lot of disadvantageous situations and whatnot. So I went looking, and of the 82 FBS quarterbacks with at least 125 dropbacks this year, he is tied for the fewest turnover-worthy plays with just one. Now, I don't know which play that was because I couldn't like chart that much, but
could have been that interception that wasn't technically an interception, maybe. I don't know if they would classify that.
I mean, probably if I had to guess. But
yeah, that would be my guess.
Okay, so now on to SMU, and of course, one of the top playmakers for them, arguably like the top playmaker for them offensively, is Brashard Smith. And I did not realize how damn good of a season he was having until I dug into some of the advanced stats. So his 95.1 offensive grade is the best in power conference football, like period. No qualifiers, no of X stats, like of in all power conference like offensive players. He's number one. He's the third highest offensive player in all of the FBS, like include group of 5 schools. He's the third highest offensive player. And pop quiz, I bet you can guess at least one of the guys who is in front of him in terms of like the
Ashton
top.
Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty is number one.
Yeah,
the other one
as he should be.
Yeah, the other.
I'm not good with names.
Yeah, the other one is Bowling Green tight end Harold Fannin Jr., which I guess
I never would have got that.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either. But no, Ashton Jeanty number one. And when you include like defensive players and like defensive stats, there's only one defensive player who has a higher defensive grade than he has an offensive grade, and it's Vanderbilt backup corner Allen Wright with a 95.4. So
sounds like he shouldn't be a backup cornerback.
Yeah, sounds like he should hit the portal.
So
Diego Pavia needs help.
Right. So just basically any way you slice it, just based on the advanced stats, he's like a top 3 player in college football, period. And he's
nice.
He's nice, and he's very explosive. I was diving into like some of his explosive runs. He's got 16 runs of 10 plus yards, that's 13th in the nation. 8 runs of 20 plus yards, that's 3rd in the nation, and 3 runs of 30 plus yard, which is tied for 9th in the nation. Now, he doesn't have very many runs longer than that, but he's still a threat to get you like a massive chunk play and pretty much any time he touches the ball. And let me see if I can pull up his stats just real quick instead of speaking in purely like PFF talk, just because I know a lot of people are still not incredibly like well versed in it. So
60% is passing, Matt. Everybody knows that. If they listen to our show, they better know that.
I know. Yeah, but he's got 505 games. He's got 509 rushing yards, 7 rushing scores, but he's also got 121 receiving yards and a score through the air. So like he's a very good running back on the ground first and foremost, and can also get it done through the air as well. So, and he does it at a very efficient level. And speaking of their offense, as we know, people who have watched college football have noted that SMU's offense has gotten a lot better since they made the switch to Kevin Jennings as the permanent quarterback. And he's someone who's a lot more mobile than Preston Stone. And just kind of, I haven't watched like a ton of film. I've watched a little bit on him, but he's a dual threat quarterback, but he's not really someone who uses his legs to really get chunks of yards. He mainly uses them just to extend plays and like maybe pick up yardage when he has to, and these stats kind of back that up. Of the 108 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks, Kevin Jennings is tied for the fewest turnover worthy plays at one, tied with Tyler Shuck, and just 12.5% of his pressures turn into sacks, which was good for 30th amongst those 108. And going back to the stat about him like getting his rushing chunks like mainly through scrambling. So of his 110 rushing yards in the season, 51 of them are on scrambles, and he averages just 3.11 yards per rush on design runs. So like he's someone who does a good job with the ball in his hands, doesn't make rash decisions like when throwing it, but he also does a fantastic job of navigating the pocket, knowing where the pressure is coming from, and like just keeping his eyes downfield, trying to make the play happen. And if the play is there to be made with his legs, then he will use it. He's not someone who's going to like look to run first. So that's, considering how much of a statue Preston Stone has looked like, is a added boost for them. So I don't have as many super in-depth stats on the defensive side, but I mean, when you have grades like these, you don't really need to go super in-depth and like splitting hairs for them. So they have 11 defenders with triple-digit snaps logged with a grade of 70 plus. So that's basically a starting 11 right there, playing above average.
Yeah.
And their four highest graded defenders with triple-digit snaps are all defensive linemen. There's edge rusher Elijah Roberts at 85.4, interior lineman Corey Robertson Jr. at an 84.9, edge Matt Baer at 79.7, and then interior Jared Harrison Hunt at 77.1. So the focal point of their defense is on their D-line in terms of like the impact they make on a play-to-play basis. But this is a fairly well-balanced SMU defense that I don't think gets the credit that it deserves, because you see them light up the scoreboard against TCU and then them light up Florida State. So their 90.7 defensive grade per PFF is 12th in the FBS, which is just one place higher than Louisville's current defensive ranking. Their 92.4 run defense is 6th. Their 74.1 pass rush is 31st, and their 84.8 coverage grade is 37th. The one area where SMU struggles on defense is tackling, with their 63.4 tackling grade ranking at 83rd. But other than that, SMU's got a very good, very underrated defense.
So that's that actually is sort of like the perfect setup. So transfer us now to move from Matt Stats into the overall preview of SMU and what we're expecting to see. So who are the SMU Mustangs? Well, they're 4-1 currently on the year, and starting the season, they struggled. They struggled mightily against the Nevada Wolfpack team with a brand new coach coming in with almost a whole brand new roster.
That was
squeaked away with a win. Got a tune-up game against I'm not going to be mean to the school, but not equivalent competition in Houston Christian, so they were able to pad the stat sheet more. And then they went out at a night game against them boys out of Provo, Utah. And if there's one thing you know in life, playing a night game against BYU, regardless of where it's at, you're going to have a bad time. And they lost 18-15 at home to BYU, who at the time we were like, oh God, they lost to BYU. This team. Well, now BYU's ranked in the top 25, 5-0 on the season. Yeah. So a little bit less embarrassing. And that was the game that sort of shifted the season for SMU, because after that game, that's when the commitment finally came that they were going to bench Preston Stone. And they didn't just bench Stone, they completely redesigned the offense because they went from setting up pass pro on play after play after play after play and trying to let Stone air it out, which was just not working because this O-line's not great in pass protection, and began to focus more on running the ball, pre-snap motion, some screens, some movement to get things going, and also the added mobility at the quarterback position really helped this team. And they started with their hair on fire and stormed out and smoked TCU 66-42, which was a drumming start to finish. They got ahead. I think they jumped out to a 21-0 lead or 24-0 lead with a couple of turnovers.
Yeah, it was something crazy like that.
And just never looked back. And then they played Florida State, who doesn't look like they've laid down and died. I just think they're not good, but put a shelling on Florida State 42-16. So that's the story of how SMU comes to this game at 4-1. On the offensive side, I talked a little bit about it. A lot of running, a lot of pre-snap movement, a lot of deception, a lot of screens, a lot of option. Rhett Lashley's in his bag this season.
Yeah. I mean, the pre-snap motions and stuff, that's going to be one of the big keys for our guys to be looking for. I mean, to be able to, yes, one, identify your motioner, but to get into the correct gap based off that motion, or to get in the correct coverage based off that motion. I mean, they could motion something, an outside receiver, and they could, try and speed motion him and stop him right there on that same side, and they could still be in a 3-by-1 set. But we could be checking into something that could be for a 2-by-2. So it's all about the communication this week and being able to be loud and just over talk. As soon as you think you're talking too much, talk a little bit more.
See, my mom hit me when I did that, but it's good for the defense. Not like that. I grew up in the olden days when that was still okay to do to your kids.
We're talking about the 40s, Keith.
So, offensive scheme, we talked a little bit about that. Defensive side, Matt talked about a lot of the PFF grades. I just, in watching some of the games, they don't look overwhelmingly impressive any individual spot, but they are a very, very opportunistic unit. Through 5 games, they've already got 14 takeaways, and they've managed to score on, I had the number, and it's no longer with me, so I'm going to filibuster a little bit. A very opportunistic unit that's able to create a lot of scores, 2 defensive touchdowns, and then also creating great field position for the offense as well. So if you make a mistake, they're going to capitalize more times than not. But just watching the Florida State game, this ain't Notre Dame secondary. I'll tell you that right now. No. There were guys running open, and either the Florida State former starting quarterback missed them, or on the off chances he did hit them, the receivers just didn't make catches. There was one, it bounced off a kid's face mask straight up into the air as if Yakety Sax was playing, straight into an SMU defender's hand.
With freaking water guns in the middle of practice. I know you all saw that video.
Hey man,
I think I'm more inclined to believe that Florida State is poo-poo.
Bro, I did some interesting wide receiver drills with Brewer, but I've never seen that in my life.
That just makes me think skill position practice is whimsical and fun.
If wide receiver practice is like that, can you imagine what the specialists are doing? Are they just playing golf? Are they even there?
Hey man, I don't know. I feel like there's 2 types of specialists, either the ones that are playing golf or the ones that are just getting yoked in the weight room.
Seriously,
there is no in between.
Yeah.
But to table set, this is a very opportunistic unit, but Florida State, who is not a good team, had guys open, and there were misses that, frankly, I don't think any of us expect Tyler Shuck to miss. And I know we aren't the first ones to say this. This is probably the best quarterback SMU is going to see at least this regular season.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, let me just pull up their
I
schedule
mean,
real quick because let's
'cause
see. I mean, they just faced DJU. I mean, Ashton Daniels, Malik Murphy, Eli Holstein. He's solid, but I still think with Shuck is better. Tom Scasiano, he's good, but not Shuck. Calandra, he's good, but not Shuck. Yeah, no, it's an accurate statement. I mean,
No.
Shuck in terms of his ability as a pure thrower. Now, obviously, they haven't exercised his ability to run as much for damn good reason. But I mean, as far as like
The
his
fumble or
actual
the
ability,
injury? Which one are we?
Well-
one are we talking about at this point, brother? I'm fucking that one frustrated the hell. out of
Porque
me.
los
Sorry,
dos.
sorry.
But
sorry.
I know, no, I know. But like in terms of his ability to throw, I mean, this is definitely going to be the best quarterback they'll face like all season.
And
Or at least
also,
go
this
ahead.
is kind of a huge game for SMU because, like, you sort of went through their schedule. If they get out of here with a winner, even if they lose, like, they've still kind of got an inside track to the ACC title game if any of the top contenders slip up. Because, like,
Yeah, I
that
mean the
us,
guys go ahead.
I was going to say it's us, and then as of right now, no other ranked opponents on their schedule. I mean, undefeated Duke, but Duke hadn't played anybody, Paul. Pitt and Boston College could be spooky, but I think with this revamped SMU offense, like, this could be a spot for who gets the number 2 spot in the ACC title game.
Somebody's definitely going to have to slip up, like you said. I mean, offensively, like you guys said, with Tyler and this being the best quarterback that they've seen, I just want to see us go out and execute that. And I think that tight end matchup is going to be one that we can, exploit a little bit more. Not necessarily just with the safety matchup, but just finding open areas for Jamari and Mark Redmond to get open. I mean, I particularly like a set where we can, tight end on the ball in a 2x2 set. So have Jamari, have Mark go underneath that middle linebacker over top of the outside linebacker on the outside with a double post coming off the backside. I mean, that is just something of beauty that I don't think we've ran much of yet. And I mean, at the same time, like, this is going to be a huge game for the offensive line. Like,
So you're sort of
ahead.
you're putting it up on a tee because I wanted to actually sort of slide into the next little mini segment we do on these preview shows, being players to watch. And normally we use this to focus on the opposing team, but I kind of want to focus in on some of the Louisville side. Who are a couple, like, other than the obvious one, like Tyler Shuck, who are going to be some of the Louisville players to watch out for in this game that maybe the box score watchers wouldn't necessarily try to follow?
Offensive line, 100%. I mean, the only thing you can get out of that, obviously the rushing attack and the sacks and stuff, those are the only two stats you can really get out of the offensive line. But, I mean, to be able to, like, this is a game where they need to impose their will, get their get-backs from Notre Dame week. It's a rough week, and just flush it and move on to the next one type deal.
Especially considering, like, they've already faced the best team that they're going to face all year.
Exactly.
I mean, Notre Dame, as imperfect as they are, especially offensively, I mean, pound for pound, talent for talent, Notre Dame's the best team they're going to face all year. I mean, there's maybe a case to be made. I was going to get to that. There's a case to be made with Miami, but crystal ball.
Frauds. They're frauds.
But then Clemson maybe, but I mean, I'm still not sold on Clemson's offense. Their defense is still pretty good, but I think at the bare minimum, Notre Dame is going to be like top 3, if not the most talented team you're going to face all year, and you face them on the road. So you've already faced a stout test. So relatively speaking, of course, it's still power conference teams you're going up against. So it's not going to be like a walk in the park per se, but you're going to have an easier time compared to like this stout test you've already faced. Because like you said, Heath, I mean, their secondary, it ain't Notre Dame's for sure. I mean, I watched a little bit of that Iron Skillet game. I mean, and you saw what TCU's own offense did after that slow start, and when they had to air it out. I mean, they scored 44 on them or something nutso like that. I mean, they've got some issues on that back end. They just got a really damn good front seven. Not really front seven. They have a good front seven, but their D line is what I'm getting at here.
But that's where I'm saying that's why the offensive line is particularly one for me to watch out this week, because of like how we do in the rushing attack as well. Like, I mean, we need to have more production out of that running back room in particular, and figure out like officially who is going to be the bell cow out of that room.
Yeah, I didn't want to harp on their secondary too much because last time we did that for a team, we ran the ball 2/3 of the time. So, another player to sort of watch out for, and it might be sort of a box score pick, but Tramel Logan and Ashton Gelati, because this quarterback is slippery.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to keep contain, get in. And if you're able to get a hand on him, you got to hold on, because this kid is very good at slipping away. And then when quarterbacks are able to do that, extend plays, create extra time, that's going to create more bend and more stress on that secondary, which is still pretty banged up.
Mm-hmm.
And that can lead to some bad things happening for the Cards. So
they're going to need to have good odds this week. I mean, especially with him getting out of the pocket and moving, extending the play, like Matt mentioned, like you mentioned, Keith. I mean, eyes in that situation, knowing your assignment and where to go and scramble drill is going to be huge.
Yeah, and kind of building on your point, Keith, I'd argue that the X factor for this game could be like someone like a Renee Conga or a Des Tell or a Jared Dawson's, someone who will come right up the middle and give that initial pocket disruption so that it will force Kevin Jennings to roll to either his right or to roll to either his left, right into the arms of an not unsuspecting defensive lineman. You get what I'm trying to say.
With arms wide open.
He's made it seem like he's sneaking around out there.
Well, to piggyback onto that point while we're joking around,
damn it.
Well, to piggyback on that point, though, also the interior D lineman, just to help out the linebackers, because Brashard Smith, also slippery as hell. You're going to have to cause some havoc to try and limit what he's able to do, because I fully expect him to get 15 to 20 touches at least in this game.
At least, yeah.
So
that's a room that needs to step up for us too.
Maybe even more.
Yeah,
sorry.
Stanquan had a hell of a game. So
yeah, and
whatever he did last week, do that again.
Yeah, and I'd argue that Brashard Smith might get even more touches than that, just because the rest of SMU's running back room is kind of banged up. So, like, he might have to be the bell cow at running back this week, because Jalen Knighton's out. I think there's another guy in that room who's kind of like on a day-to-day basis. So, like, in terms of like the production that they're going to get, well, not even production, but like just snaps at running back, period. I mean, he's pretty much the only feasible guy for them right now.
Just hold him up so we can get one good square hit on him early, so he's feeling it throughout the course of the game. Might be a little more tentative in the rushing game, but I mean, you look at me like I'm Greg Williams out here calling for bounties. Like, these are conversations that happen. It's like, no, hold the guy up so we can get extra pop on him.
You're 100% right. I mean,
I just like making a face to make you feel like the bad guy, Keith. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, you know, I love that shit.
I mean, I lean into the bad guy role. I've accepted it. Say goodnight to the bad guy.
We've determined that you're a psychopath after how much Maction you watched like this past football season. So
he's not a psychopath. He's a sicko. There's a difference.
All right. So we've touched a little bit on the Louisville side, and we've also touched on a couple of the players to watch on the SMU side. Brashard Smith, fast, elusive, patient runner as well. All in all, very dangerous man. Kevin Jennings, mobile as hell, runs well, but doesn't try to. Solid arm. I would argue Preston Stone's probably a better pure passer, but he can't move, and like Jennings can. And if there is a weakness on this SMU offense, it's their O-line and pass protection. Like, they weren't running the ball as much early in the season, and I thought they looked soft as hell because they were just getting beat up by so many teams that were inferior talent-wise. Rhett Lashley, honestly, I compare the effort he's making this year to similar to what Jeff Brom did last year. Like, hey, I like to pass the ball, we can't pass the ball like this. We got to make some changes. So he's on the fly sort of created this hybrid rushing scheme that's worked out really well for this team, and it's going to win them a lot of games this year.
We're going to have to get out on them 14 points, 21, 17, anywhere in that range, to where we're forcing them to throw the ball, to where guys like Ashley can just pin their ears back and just have a field day with this offensive line. It could be a big game for him. Like you said, Keith, guy like Destel could end up being the key factor in this whole game. He's got pretty good pass rush himself. So I'm excited for that matchup, that's for sure. But, it's all about getting them in that opportunity to where, we can pin our ears back. Can't pin your ears back on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3. You can, but It's way more of a risk.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And with the offense, with how aggressive they have been and kind of opportunistic, this is going to be a real test of what Shuck can do in like the passing game. And I can see with this being a game in which a guy like Colin Lacey will thrive because of how much pressure SMU puts on the quarterback and how much pressure they get on the offensive line in general, and how much faster the quarterback has to get the ball out. I can see this being a day where Ja'Cory Brooks isn't as involved, especially on those deep type of routes. Maybe they get him involved in some intermediate stuff, sure, but I can see Colin Lacey. I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the day you look at the box score and he's got 150, just because they have to get the ball out quickly. And a guy like him, he's been really antsy to get back to action, and he was slow to start a little bit in that Notre Dame game, but by the time the end of the game got there,
I would be. That's my first day being cleared for freaking full go. It's against Notre Dame. I don't even get to do it.
And he showed by the end that he's ready. So I can see this being a game where he's heavily involved in the action, regardless of if it's a win or a loss.
Yeah. One other player who just scares me on the SMU side of the ball offensively, RJ Maryland. That's a guy who's got all the tools in the world and will very likely be playing on Sundays when he's done in Dallas. If they do have to pass, that's one of the guys you just can't let beat you, because he's a dynamic, explosive tight end who can make big plays.
Is Quincy playing this week for sure, Matt? Is that confirmed?
He tried to give it a go in the Notre Dame game, but from what I understand, in warmups he rolled his ankle again, so it wasn't really something he could have gone on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a guy to watch for sure for me. If he's back in action, how well does he perform on that ankle? Where's his pad level at? Where is he at coming in and out of breaks?
Judging by Brahms' verbiage in his weekly presser, he seems. His exact word was he's hopeful. So I would think that so long as Quincy doesn't, I would think that so long as Quincy doesn't roll his ankle again in pregame warmups, he should be good to go. Now whether or not we'll get 2023 Quincy Riley or 2024, up to this point, Quincy Riley is a different story. Just because, we've said on the pod before, he has not looked good to start the year.
I still think that he would have helped a lot last week, though. There's no doubt.
Oh, he absolutely would have, but
just communication wise and having a vet out there.
Yeah, yes. No, you're right there. But but this could be, for all we know, this could be a get right game for him. We never know. But he's got to go out there and show it,
or at least get him limited snaps or something if he is able to go. Try not to overwhelm him. Definitely don't put his ass returning punts. Just ease him back into the workload.
And some of those other injury guys. Did he give any updates on them, Matt? I haven't listened to anything Coach said, so nothing.
No. As far as I know, MJ is still, I'm going to say fine. I don't want to speak on something I'm not entirely sure of, but I haven't
as far as
anything
to go. Yeah,
as far as I know. But then again, Louisville and the Brahms are very close to the vest when it comes to injury news. So, he's up there in the Kyle Whittingham school of thought when it comes to injuries.
Y'all remember during COVID when we woke up and had 12 players out that one day?
Oh my God. That was nuts.
I remember walking to the stadium and Blake, one of the trainers or somebody was like, "Yeah, we got 12 guys out," and I'm like, when did this happen?
The vid.
Yeah.
All right, so Talked a lot about sort of the rosters, the keys to the game, who to watch out for. It's time to make some picks. So we are currently harassing one Jacob Lane, who's yet to give us an official pick. If he doesn't get it to us by the time we get the show wrapped up, I will make sure that one of us ends up tweeting out his pick from the State of Louisville account to hold him accountable.
Hold his feet to the auto draft.
He gets an auto draft.
Yeah, exactly.
No, he gets the worst line. So as of right now, the current betting line is Louisville giving up 6.5 points at some sports books at a lot lower, like less profitable odds. Other sports books have Louisville -7 at a little bit more profitable odds. For the sake of keeping this with a hook, we're going to go with the 6.5 line. We're not going to have that key number yet. So with that, Matt, we're going to go to you first. Who are you picking and why?
So I think this one has the makings of a shootout just because SMU's offense has exploded over the last couple games. They're really clicking with Kevin Jennings. Louisville's defense has been really good, but it has been prone to some coverage busts and some mistakes and miscues and whatnot. So until they fix that, I have a feeling that SMU can capitalize on some of those. But on the flip side, Louisville's offense, playing against one of the best defenses in the nation, one of the top secondaries in the nation, they still were able to hang up 24 on them. So I think while this is a shootout, while I think SMU covers, I think Louisville wins 35-31.
So Matt McGavic taking the Mustangs and the points. All right, that's our first non-Louisville pick coming from not me this year. Vince, I see you on the horn. You're trying to get Jacob Lane on the horn.
Yeah, I was going to give a live interview to the whole, hey, Jacob, Vince Lococo here live from the Pixies podcast. I'm just curious what you're,
Call it here. You're on.
What's the line? What were we going through right there? Matt, with SMU?
Louisville is giving up 6.5 points right now is what we're going to go with. Matt took SMU in the points.
I think Louisville wins. I just think SMU covers.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Louisville. I think we can win by 14. I think that's a very feasible thing for us to do. 14-21 type deal, point win. It's going to be tough. Obviously, we got to stop the run again, contain this quarterback. And this could be a big game for Tyler. You never know, guys. This could be a air it out, big time game. It's really dependent on the offensive line and how well they block. It all starts up front every single week.
Yeah, this is going to be a really fascinating game of trying to figure out, can Louisville get off the mat? You had a really sloppy game last week where you still had an opportunity to come back, tie it up late. You came up short. How do you respond after giving up 3 bad turnovers going up against a team that, like Notre Dame, very opportunistic on the defensive side of the ball? SMU can create opportunities. They can create points. One other factor that I'm curious about going into this game, what's the home field advantage going to be like? Because preseason, SMU wasn't the sexy name. It's like, oh, this is the team that just came up from the American. They had to pay their way into the league. They're not good. This is a team that's 4-1, getting votes in the AP Top 25 poll. Their only loss is to a Top 25 team. I took a look at the resale market this morning, and it's not painting a bright picture for what our fan base is going to be doing this weekend, because there was a whole lot of availability at some very reasonable prices. So, fan base, if you're listening to this and you are considering going to this game, you can get in the door for as little as $22 with fees. And that's on Wednesday. That's probably going to drop.
And it's not going to be 99.9 degrees outside with 0 wind blowing.
Yeah, I think last I checked, the weather is supposed to be a high of 83 and winds light and variable. So it's going to be a really good weather game.
So as of right now, I have a high of 80 degrees at 4 p.m. And that'll be as the game's wrapping up, because this is a nooner. So at noon, it's going to be a crisp 73 degrees with a 0% chance of precipitation. Local weathermen, please don't break my kneecaps for doing your job on a pre-recorded podcast. Still go to them for the weather over me. But if you are considering going to this game, it is a very cost-efficient game to get into with as good of early fall weather that you could ask for. I think the home field advantage in this game could be the thing that swings the points one way or another. That said, I'm not sold on SMU's secondary, and I'm not sold on SMU's offensive line. If we can get ahead early, make some plays in the passing game, I think the Cards can jump out to an early start, make some plays, put the foot on the gas. I'm going to go with the Cards giving up the 6.5. And we have our one last gasp of an attempt at Jacob Lane currently on.
He actually responded. I checked the group.
Jacob Lane. And Jacob Lane with the pick of Louisville giving up the 6.5. He's picking the Cards to cover. So Matt, the lone dissenter, going out on a limb, taking the Mustangs to cover, but not to win. We'll be sure not to disparage our friendly journalist, Matt McGavic.
So either after this upcoming weekend, I'm going to take the lead in this, or I'm going to join you, Keith.
Exactly. So one way or another, we're going to see some movement in the standings.
One thing about SMU, like this is a team, we're talking about it. We know it's going to be a tight game and stuff this year. It's going to be a battle. But like in the coming years, can you all imagine how good this team has the potential to be with
they can print their own money?
Yeah. This is going to be a big middle finger from the entire death penalty group. It's going to be wild.
This is the granddaddy of NIU or NIL. They were doing it before it was cool. I just recently re-listened to that 30 for 30, and it is so funny to hear them just the blatant, we don't care. Like,
I thought about watching
it today. We're just going to keep selling it. Yeah,
dude. It's such a good 30 for 30. It's one of my favorites.
This is a cool program with a lot of history, and this is one that's in a recruiting hotbed out of Dallas.
Another thing I love about SMU is the fact that they wear the Oilers uniforms and the Texans can't.
Yeah,
like good for you, SMU. That shit's hilarious.
So to recap, Jacob, Vince, and myself all going Cards minus 6.5. Matt going with SMU plus 6.5 for the prediction segment. Fellas, any last things before we sign off for the evening? I know I'm looking forward to seeing everyone out at the ballpark almost. Stadium. It's a nooner. I know it's hard to get up for. I'm going to have the Mimosa Tower out and ready. Get that champagne and OJ before the game. Yeah.
There you go.
We're talking. This is a telling game for Louisville in that it's their opportunity for them to prove that the sloppiness from Georgia Tech and the extreme sloppiness from Notre Dame was just some early season mistakes and jitters and whatnot, and that it's not going to be a recurring theme, because now we've already seen it 2 games in a row against power conference competition. And if this continues into this game being your second game at home against power competition against a team that is good, at that point, it's not just going to be an anomaly. It's going to be who you are as a team.
Yeah. If I see 12 people on the field again for this game, I might pull all my hair out. Seriously.
No, don't do that. You're so sexy with it.
So if Louisville can go out there and play a clean game and win, of course, then you can still have those aspirations for, potentially getting back to Charlotte, potentially crashing the CFP. But if they go out there and don't look too hot, have some of the same mistakes that we saw against Georgia Tech and Notre Dame, win or lose, now you start to have the discussion about, okay, this is what this team is. Are they really a team that can get back to Charlotte? Things like that.
100%. This is a game that's going to tell the tale of what this Louisville team is. I know a lot of the fan base believes that this is a team that can compete with Clemson and Miami this year in that ACC title race. If that's the case, you need to go out there and beat the brakes off of SMU, because if you don't, the Mustangs have the inside track and you're playing from behind, you're losing the tiebreaker, and then you can't slip up against Clemson or Miami or anyone else in the ACC schedule and realistically hope to have a shot of making the title game. And if you lose this game, you're like, you have to win the ACC championship or playoff dreams are dead. So this is a game that's going to tell us a lot about this Louisville team this year. And if they are closer to the team that like Matt and Jacob sort of thought they were in the preseason predictions, or Vince especially, or if they're
I feel attacked. It's my month. That's my month.
Or if they're the team that I was pessimistically thinking they were going to be this year. So I highly encourage you, Louisville fans, get out there, be loud, give us a real home field advantage, be loud while we're on defense on every down, not just third down when the PA system tells you to. But that being said, we're going to wrap things up tonight. That's Matt McGavic. That's Vince Lococo. I'm producer Keith. Shout out to our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. One more time, promo code Pink Seats. And with that, we're going to wrap this episode up because we love our sponsors so much. You've been tuning in to another episode of From the Pink Seats podcast. And as always, go Cards. Boys, I fucking nailed that dismount, didn't I?
There we go.
Getting worse.